Okay. Well, we're going to have about a week of work on another aspect of soul, which is blessing. It's a key aspect of the soul is what we call blessing and the ability to bless. And I'm going to be able to have a big time kind of talk about it next Saturday. So we'll have a week to just integrate what we say today about blessing, and then more to come on Saturday. And the opening screensaver, if you didn't see it, was a picture that we took. I think it's 5 years ago was the last time we visited Ireland, and that was the Cliffs of Moher, about 700-foot cliffs, and no culture really that I know has a deeper understanding of blessing uh, as the Celtic culture of Ireland. They understand blessing. They understand cursing too, throwing curses at people. But I'm not going to emphasize that. You're on your own there. But to learn from the Celtic folks what it really means to bless. And I'm going to start off with a few words from a master, John O'Donohue, and we're going to hear more from him next week. But just in his preface to his great book, it's called "To Bless the Space Between Us," and he's got a series of John's own blessings. But he in his preface and then his afterword, he gives a lot about the practice and the of blessing itself. He's a master. Here are just a few words, a few sentences from John to start us off. He says here, in the parched deserts of postmodernity, of this materialist age, a blessing can be like a discovery of a fresh well. It would be lovely if we could rediscover our power to bless one another. I believe each of us can bless. When a blessing is invoked, it changes the atmosphere. Some of the plenitude flows into our hearts from the invisible neighborhood of loving kindness. Beautiful way to say where this ability comes from. It flows into the invisible neighborhood of loving kindness, connects with our heart. And then he says, it is ironic that so often we continue to live like paupers, though our inheritance of spirit is so vast. It's ironic that we so often continue to live like paupers, though our inheritance of spirit is so vast. The quiet eternal that dwells in our souls is silent and subtle. Great line. John has a way of putting it. The quiet eternal that dwells in our souls is silent and subtle. In the activity of blessing, it emerges to embrace and nurture us. Let us begin to learn how to bless one another. Yeah. He says, I believe each one of us can bless. You know, we think just priests can bless, or just holy people, maybe nuns or priests or officials at certain services, and they certainly can do it. I've known some great priests who do know how to bless just by their presence. You're blessing everybody here is blessing everybody just by your presence here, of course, in this blessed space. But Whitman wrote, when he was writing The Leaves of Grass, he says, it's time for each of us to be our own priest. It's maybe sounds irreverent, but he's talking about something deep, that we all are connected to the infinite spirit, all of us. That connection is the soul. It's what we call the soul. It's sort of like when you plug in an appliance into the socket. The the soul is that socket. It connects you with infinite amount of electricity, an infinite amount of power, you see. So we all have that, and it's time that we start harnessing it. Um, and then it doesn't mean priests can't do it, and sisters can't do it. Of course they can, and monks and whatnot, whatever. I just put a prayer on the monks' prayer board over at Gethsemane. Well, I mean, these guys are friends of mine, but they're serious. They meet together like this 8 times a day, and they're praying for the whole world, and they also pray for people on the prayer board. People can write in and say, pray for so and so who's having a cancer operation, and they'll do it. They'll do it. They glance at the board before it's right there on the way into the church where they gather to pray 8 times a day. They're serious about it. Intention is powerful, and an individual's attention. And what do we have? 36 people here, including 37. Ron's sitting by my side here. We don't minimize what this group intention can do. There was, and it may still be ongoing, but an American university was running a kind of test, and they in one room that was a machine that flipped coins. It just kept flipping coins over and over again, heads, tails, and that room was sealed. And then in a room down the corridor at first, they would have undergraduates come in, and basically they would ask them what you want to come up on the coin flipper, heads or tails. They did this I think they did it every half hour, every 15 minutes. And so they had a little sheet, and they would put heads or tails and then seal it and put it in the envelope and time stamp when their name was in there, and then they'd leave, and then they could check. And what they found was that it jumped up. Normally when they're flipping heads or tails, it's 50-50 proposition. But when their intention was they wanted tails to come up, it rose up as high as 75%. Even a few percentage would be significant, but up to 75%. Well, they kept doing this, and they found a radius of 150 miles in which this works. And beyond that, it diminished. But they said 150-mile radius from this site, it would work. There's a group now. I sent them some money, and I'm praying with them who are just focusing on an area of West Louisville that's has more crime than usual, and so I don't really care about the measurements. If somebody's praying for an area of West Louisville, I'm in, so I signed up for it and include them in my prayers. But they said, and they've done this. The first time they did this there was a perimeter around Washington, D.C., which is a high crime area, not the Congress, which you could say is a high crime area too, but just the people who live in the people who live in D.C., all those guys, they live outside of D.C. somewhere, but the people who live in D.C., very poor and they miserable. So they've tried it other places. They're doing it, second year they're doing it in Louisville, certain areas. Yeah. So, yeah, it's been proved over and over again that human intention, and so if you intend to curse or you intend to bless, it has a power. And then when we get 36 people together in one place, well, that's we got to realize we got to start here first. You have to start blessing yourself first, and we're going to go into a short blessing, and then a couple of poems, a short blessing, and then a poem that will lead us into the meditation. But you got to start with yourself. Then you bless others. Then you can bless the whole shebang, really. Okay? So this is, in both these blessings or poems will be in the Monday thing. If I can find my text. Nope, that's not it. Where are you? There you go. Yeah, I just called this to bless the soul. This is a blessing to bless the very soul. First of all, your own soul. Second of all, the soul of everybody here and everybody that you're connected to, which is everybody. And then to move it out into the world. Okay, it just goes like this. Now it's the classic Celtic thing is that they start the lines of blessing with may, and the Buddhists do the same thing when they do loving kindness kind of work. May you rest in natural great peace. May is a kind of window into that inner power you see into the soul. So this is just 9 lines. It's easy to do. I do it mostly every morning when I wake up, and then throughout the day. I start with myself. May I see my true self. May I know my true self. May I love my true self. We'll double back to these lines, but I just want you to hear the way they flow. So we can start out with, may I see my true self. May I know my true self. May I love my true self. And then the next 3 lines, may you see your true self. May you know your true self. May you love your true self. And then the final 3 lines, may we love just this. May we taste just this. May we bless just this. Yeah, this works for me. I'm doing this normally before I even get out of bed most mornings. Sometimes I forget, and I'm in the kitchen, and then I realize, so, all right, bless my own soul, bless the soul of all the people in this group. You're what I call loved ones, family, friends, loved ones, people I've been walking with, some cases for 20 years. So bless your soul. And then the third part, so it goes from I to you to we to the big royal we. Okay, so may I see my true self. We're talking about perception here, but we're also talking about what if you've seen Avatar, that's the way they greet people. That's the way they say I love you, is to say I see you. Very interesting, because these are forest people, and it's based on some of the Amazon forest tribes that James Cameron met to do research for doing his Avatar stuff, and they say, "May I see?" I see you is a way of saying I love you. It's interesting because forest people, they don't really proceed much by sight. It's mostly smell and hearing is how forest people live. That's how they know what's going on. So to say, may I see you, it's a very important thing for them because they're talking about an inner sight, you see. And then, may you know your true self. Knowing is a different thing entirely. So first of all, you have to start to glimpse this thing called the true self, the soul. Same thing. We're talking in the same area here, just duplicate words. So to start to you glimpse your soul, but then to know it is to actually understand it. Okay. And then finally, to love it is to embrace it, to make it part of yourself. So that sequence of seeing, knowing, and then loving. Loving is, even if it's some part of your whole being that's you don't like so much. When you can really penetrate it and understand it, then you can finally embrace it or love it. Okay, and so that's sort of that progression from I to you And then the we part is very interesting. I do a version of this when I walk on the road because I'm walking out in, I can see it from here, looking out at all the trees, the sky, the soil. So uh, may we, it's a natural progression. May we love just this, whatever this is, this moment. Okay. May we taste just this. Tasting is experiential. And so if you get to the point where you love every moment and then taste it, because every moment is different. It has a different. It's experiential. So tasting everything. I'm dog sitting Elizabeth's dog Greta, and you take her on a walk. I took her on a walk. It was a long walk for her. We just made it up down my driveway, which some of you have been on, to Barnes Road, and then back. That took an hour because I was letting her lead, and she will walk a few steps, and then she's sniffing. It was a journey of 1,000 sniffs, and she was literally at one point tasting this one plant. She was chewing it up like it was a salad bar. I did pull her off of that one, little Miss Flower, but it was I was letting her do the pace. One of the great Paulo Coelho, who wrote The Alchemist, he also walked the Camino. That's 500 kilometers. It took me an hour to walk 1 kilometer with Greta. He said on the Camino, he said, walk half as fast, see twice as much. Walk half as fast, see twice as much. Can't tell you the amount of stuff I saw in this hour just going in this 1 kilometer Camino with. So this is the idea of she was tasting everything. She was tasting the breeze. Sometimes she just was there sniffing, and then we walked past a dead mole. Was just laying there like that. Oh man, she was mesmerized by that. I did have to nudge her away from that. So she wanted to taste it. She wanted to taste the dead mole. So we can learn a lot in terms of like when we go into silent meditation a while. You got to get out of your head. You got to become a full-bodied person, and part of it is, may you love just this, whatever just this is, an emotion. It doesn't matter. Falling asleep, it doesn't matter. You love it, you taste it, experience it fully, and then you bless it. May we bless just this. That's a kind of, in 9 lines, that's a kind of evolution of a human being. If you can live those last words, may I love just this? May I taste just this? May I bless just this? Sometimes you're in a very painful space. You lose somebody, or you're frightened, or you're afraid, or you're angry. There's all the flavors, more than 31 flavors of what happens in your life moment by moment. Can you love it? Can you taste it? Can you bless it? That's quite a it's quite a commitment to live that way. Yeah, it works for me. So anyway, I'm throwing that out. So you can do this kind of thing. You can write your own and start it with May. But I like to include everybody when I pray. So I'm praying it for everybody that I know intimately, and then finally extending it out to the world in moment by moment. May I love just this, especially when just this is not what you planned. The last thing in the world you want to do right now. And I was saying that I was doing the third thing when I was walking with her and thinking, oh, well, let's get a little walk in here. And, it's like we were going at like a kilometer a minute or like a meter a minute. There was a walk of 1,000 sniffs. But anyway, so that's one. And I'll encourage you, write your own if this doesn't, if it doesn't resonate. Write your own, but you can bless anything. And that's what we're going to learn. We're going to learn a lot more from John O'Donohue in terms of how to bless some things you don't think you could bless. But start with yourself I was always struck by the monks at the end of their chanting, whatever hour it is. They bow and they say, May we bless the Lord. Thanks be to God. And I used to think, well, does God need to be blessed? Uh, well, they bow and say, may we bless the Lord. Thanks be to God. That's how they end. Then they do that multiple times a day. What does that do to a person? Yeah. Now this poem will take us to the sitting. Uh, so when we sit for this 20 minutes, when you listen to a talk, you're blessing me with your silence. I'm blessing you with words. When we sit, another kind of blessing is going on. It all becomes blessing after a while, and this is called practice as a blessing. And I'll just read it for you, just to give you the feel for it. I began practicing Zen meditation 50 years ago as a kind of far out approach to self improvement. I knew I was stressed. This is when I started teaching uh, teaching Tom here and a bunch of other cowboys in Houston. I knew I was stressed and deluded and suffering. And I thought if I could just learn how to meditate, maybe I could become better. Hell, maybe even enlightened. The whole approach was delusion itself, which is why it never worked. There was some stress relief and that kind of stuff, but it didn't really work. But thanks to the blessing of several teachers, I'm looking at some of my great ones on the altar right now. Thanks to the blessing of several teachers, I eventually saw my practice in an entirely different light. Maybe you could, when we sit in a few minutes, maybe you could see it in a little different light too. Instead of a way to improve myself or fix myself or even change myself, I eventually saw my practice as a way to bless myself. Self with a capital S. I eventually got the right view that I had my true self inside me in seed form. And all I had to do was give it the proper amount of water and sunlight, and I would become what I was meant to be, a wholly ripe human being. I mean, it's the same. We're organic just like everything else. And if a tomato gets enough sun and the right kind of uh, watering, it will become a luscious tomato. We're overrun with tomatoes. We're doing BLTs almost every night here, and it's lovely. So to become a wholly ripe human being is what that's one image of what the great work is. But it takes nurturing, it takes watering, it takes sunlight, and so to see the whole process of sitting in silence with everything that you are, even if you don't know what's happening, even if it seems like nothing's happening, yeah, that's part of the great work, you see. Now I see my spiritual practice as a daily act of self-blessing, and that's everything from reading, doing some spiritual reading, sitting in meditation, writing, all these things that you can do, walking. I see my spiritual practice as a daily act of self-blessing and a way to water and nourish my soul, to help it unfold and flourish. The soul and the true self are the same, and but it needs to be blessed with attention, with awareness, and then I just think my practice blesses me into being. That's the great work, as Jung and Joseph Campbell would say. Somehow, the way you live your life can bless you into being who you're meant to be. It's a process. It's a process. So I think that's enough. If you're interested in that poem, it'll be listed there tomorrow too. But let's look at today's sit as, and whatever you write, as a way of blessing your soul, a way of blessing your true self, because you're giving awareness. Awareness is like the sun, you see, very much. Okay, so we're gonna shift to meditation mode. I think that's enough words for right now.